What is wrong with J.J. McCarthy? That's going to be the show today. He is 2-3 as a starter, and the Vikings are 4-6. This is not how we expected the season to go, and this was not how we expected J.J. McCarthy's development to go. What's going on? What can be fixed? And what is the real issue? Plus, I think I have found the solution to short-term and then using that to catapult to long-term success. We're going to talk about all that and more here on The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Forno on your first $5 play, you can get $100 in bonus credits. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, is producer Dave. And if you are looking for a hot take show, a show where we're just going to claim that J.J. McCarthy is a massive bust, you're in the wrong place. You want level-headed, in-depth analysis based on the data and the tape, you are in the right place. We're going to do what we always do, level-headed, honesty. We're not looking for the hot take bullshit. We're just trying to find the answers and try to give you a semblance of what is really going on with J.J. McCarthy. With that said, Dave, yesterday sucked.
It did.
It was bad, but today is a new day, and we are going to break down everything that's going on with J.J. McCarthy. And I'm going to come at it from, I am not God. I don't have every single answer. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you if it's really bad. I'm just going to be blunt, and it won't always be fun. But I think we're going to come out of this with a better semblance of what in the world is actually going on with J.J. McCarthy, something that you're not going to get a lot of other places. That is why we exist. We exist because we want to be different. We want to be honest. That has pretty much been our mission statement since day one. We want to be the best at this. And to be the best, you have to be straight up and you have to be real. We're not trying to just put stuff out to make money. We're trying to put stuff out to be legit.
Yes.
And we're gonna start that here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. I've got an announcement at the end of the show for all of our YouTube members. If you aren't a member, it's going to be a great reason to join as a member. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But don't just stick around for that. We're going to talk a lot about J.J. McCarthy. And look, David sucked. There were some flashes, and there was a lot of, oh my God, I want to pull my hair out. The game itself was just a brutal watch. And guess what? I decided to torture myself all over again. How did I torture myself? I watched the All-22. The All-22 was not better, let me tell you. But
Offensive
I think
line looked good.
It did. Everybody was begging for the offensive line for years. You can be happy. Good unit. Very good unit. And let's start here because I want to start off with some positive because I'm going to bury J.J. McCarthy to oblivion a lot here in this show. So one thing that I found really interesting when having the conversation about what McCarthy is right now, early on, his sack avoidance was god-awful. And he only has less than 170 dropbacks. I tweeted it out. Let me pull up the number here. So in his first 3 games, he had 87 dropbacks. The last 2 games, he has 79. And the only way you can get a pressure is by having a dropback. So no handoffs. If J.J. McCarthy runs, you can still get pressured. But he only has 166 dropbacks in his career. That is not a large sample size. But what really struck me as interesting, Dave, is how good the sack avoidance has gotten over the course of these last 2 games. So He got pressured 36 times in his first 3 starts, okay? That's 41.38% of all of his dropbacks. A little higher than average, but it's not an insane number. He took 14 sacks. For context, the first 9 games of Caleb Williams' season this year, he took 14 sacks. His sack avoidance has become one of the best in the National Football League. And you got to see that on Sunday, where he escaped a couple times out of, oh my gosh, he's about to go situations. Sack avoidance is a huge thing because it can extend drives. It can prevent you from getting out of field goal range. It can do a lot of positives for you. Now, if it's third down and you have to punt anyways, well, guess what? It could give you 10 yards of field position. So it is a really important thing. And people were burying him for it in the first 3 weeks. And I'm like, you know what? It's his first 3 games. Let's see what happens once we get a bigger sample size. How are things going to evolve? And guess what? They did, because he had 79 dropbacks in the last 2 games, 1 sack on 31 pressures. So he went, Dave. And for context, his pressure rate dropped about 2% from 41.38 to 39.24% in that time span, okay? So combined, he has 15 sacks and 67 pressures, 22.39%. That number's a little higher than you want, but you want to be at 20 or less. That's kind of the ultimate goal. If you're better than that, that's awesome. But 20% is kind of like the threshold. And then when you take a look at 1 sack on 31 pressures, 3.22%, that is an incredible amount of growth. Now, we're still dealing with small sample sizes across the board. So we can't sit here and say, hey, this is for sure what's going on. This is for sure fixed. But
this was against the Chicago Bears defensive front.
Now, and somebody did bring this up in my comments. Here's the thing. This isn't talking about getting pressure. This is just talking about being pressured. Not all pressures are created equal, but this is just his success against actual pressure. And I think some of that is, the Bears do have a poor defense front. Absolutely. But when you have a guy in your face and you are being pressured, he's still finding a way to avoid it. And that is the growth that we're talking about. And last week against the Ravens, 22 pressures against the likes of Kyle Hamilton. And he had 1 sack. That's a really good number, even though that's not the strongest defensive front. But it's about how you do against the pressure that you're given. It's not necessarily about, he was just really good against this defensive front. No. Like, only 9 pressures, that's not a lot to deal with. And that in itself is its own conundrum. But we're just talking about when he's pressured, can he avoid sacks? In the last 2 weeks, he's shown he can do it at a high level. And that is a really nice piece of improvement. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of something to chew on in a positive light, because I'm going to bury him. I'm going to bury him to oblivion. This is right now, and this isn't to say that things won't change. We only have 5 games. Anything can happen with J.J. McCarthy's growth and development. Right now, he stinks. I don't really think that's too much of a hot take. There's still positives in his game, but his overall body of work is bad. It's not good. So let's start talking about some of the issues. The one that everybody's going to focus on, and they rightfully should, Dave, is the footwork. I talked last week about kind of what McCarthy is. It's almost like he's like a teenager that just drinks like 3 monsters. And as the game kind of progresses, you can see him just going bonkers and not having himself composed. And, when you have a lot of sugar and caffeine, if you try to steady your hand, you just can't do it. That's what he's doing with his feet.
And then he takes a shot of Red Bull at halftime.
You probably have never heard of this. Have you heard of the energy drink cocaine, Dave?
I have, yes.
So cocaine was so strong and sugary that you had to chase it with like Coca-Cola or Pepsi. You couldn't drink water afterwards. You had to, it was like chasing a shot of Everclear. You can't do it with a real chaser. You got to do it with booze, and then you do it with a chaser. It was bonkers stuff. And oh boy, did you bounce off the walls. If you didn't normally drink energy drinks and you had the cocaine energy drink, you were going bonkers. And trust me, this is a real energy drink. I am not talking about drugs. Go look it up. I promise you, it is a real thing. And I have not seen it in stores in years. But when I was in high school in the late 2000s, oh, I knew plenty of people that tried it. And I did too. It's bonkers stuff. But anyways, the reason I bring up cocaine is because it's almost like that feeling that you have when you're on it, or you have like 3 energy drinks. You're just going crazy and shaking and all this stuff, and you can't keep still. You can't keep still. And that's what his feet do in the pocket, because when you watch him, to me, the really interesting thing, Dave, is the fact that you have I lost my train of thought.
There you go, Peter. It says it was made in Cold Spring Brewery. He has some if you want it.
That is very kind of you, Peter. I don't want it. I turn 36 next month. I do not want to have any cocaine energy drink at this point in my life.
Bulldog
Bang is
says
as
those
strong as I
lawsuits build up.
Yeah. So the big thing with McCarthy is a lot of times what's between the ears, what's in here is pretty solid. He's making pretty good decisions. He's seeing the field relatively well. But the big issue is when he does make a decision, he's still a little slow because he's still getting acclimated to the speed of the game. But for me, the big thing is he's a little slow, but his feet don't match the eyes. And this was a big problem with Anthony Richardson. Everybody who's watched the show for any period of time, one, thank you. Two, you know how much I loved Anthony Richardson and how much I wanted him to be a member of the Minnesota Vikings. They came really close. I had multiple sources tell me, and we've reported on this show, they offered 3 firsts and 2 seconds to go get him, and they got told no. They wanted 3 firsts and 3 seconds is what I was told.
Hey,
they wanted
get it next year.
Yeah. And you know what? It might not be the worst idea, because no matter what you think of what he does, he's incredibly talented. He has arguably the greatest throw I've ever seen, where he's like falling away, getting hit, and throws a nearly 70-yard dot for a touchdown. The week 1 game last year to Alec Pierce, everybody's seen it. But really, really good player. Not a perfect player. He's got issues. There's a reason he's not starting. But there's a lot of talent to work with. And one of the big things with Anthony Richardson, and why I bring this up, is the biggest thing with him was his feet. His lower half was not married to his eyes. They were not in sync. When he was ready to throw the football, his feet were not ready. And when you don't have those two together, you're throwing with all arm. And if you throw with all arm, just go out in your garage, because it's probably too cold out, and try to throw a football with your hips facing forward. And all you can do is turn your abdomen. It is very hard to throw a football. It's very hard to throw it accurately, because so much of your throwing comes from your hips, comes from your feet, comes from stepping into the throw and having everything move together. McCarthy does not have that right now. He does not have the ability to connect the two with any form of consistency. You see some reps where it's very consistent. The dig route to Justin Jefferson for like 25 yards. That was really nice. Drops back, hitches, fires. Everything was in sync. Everything was aligned, and he made a really good throw. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We saw that a lot with Sam Darnold. We saw it a lot with Kirk Cousins. They had everything aligned together. Now, is McCarthy ever going to get that? I cannot tell you yes or no. I can tell you that the path is possible, because he's already shown that he can do it. And by showing you can do it at all means it's a consistency thing. And if it's a consistency thing, well, guess what? I can work with that. I can figure out, okay, if it's just a consistency thing, well, why isn't he doing it from practice to the game? And I think this quote from Kevin O'Connell from Sunday's game is really interesting, Dave. Whether it's just the initial posture, whether we've just learned that when he has great posture at the top of his drops, he throws the ball really well. He did it Friday, did it Thursday. And I even referenced on Friday the type of practices he's had. So this raises a big question, Dave. Why is he doing it in practice? And why is it not translating directly to Sunday? I think that's the big question that we just don't have an answer to. There's some guys, and Tim Tebow was one of those guys, and we've heard a lot of comparisons over the last 24 hours between McCarthy and Tebow. I'm not going to give them any credence, but one of the big things with Tebow is he was just a bad practice player. But the second like the bright lights turned on, something snapped in him and he just played great football. Especially when the money downs, the money time. When you had to make a comeback, Tebow was there and he was making it happen. And there's something to being a gamer, but this is almost the opposite situation where he's doing it in practice. And we talk a lot about some of the play calling thing, and I don't think I gave this enough credence in real time when we were having those play calling conversations, Dave. He's doing this in practice, so he should be able to do it on game day. And that, I think, is something that has gotten lost. Because if you're doing it in practice, that's when it's easy. If you can't do it in practice, I can't trust you at all to do it on game day. You have to be able to do it in practice and run it well. And look, I can read Kevin O'Connell relatively well. He does not tell you a lot, but you can pick up on things. I don't like to be the body language guy, but you can tell by the tone, you can tell by how selective he is with his words, really what he's trying to tell you. And he straight up said, look, McCarthy's had great practices. He meant it. He wasn't bullshit. And I think that's a really important factor here because if he was doing it in practice, then he should be able to do it in the game. God, one of my ears needed to pop. It's that element alone is such an intriguing factor about this whole conversation. Because if he's doing it in practice and then not doing it in the game, where's the disconnect? And I think the disconnect, and it's been reported that he has ADHD. I can't remember where. I think he was the one who said it.
He said it. Yeah.
I think that's right. But I think he just gets too amped up and he gets too hyped. He's got too much caffeine running through his veins. That's the problem. He's too amped up. He's getting too hyped. And he's allowing himself to get out of control. Because when he plays in control, and albeit we don't have a ton of examples of playing completely in control. The fourth quarter against the Bears in week 1, the final drive this past week, he's had instances of this looks really good. This is a quarterback that I think I can develop. This is a good-ass football player. There are stretches where it's like, okay, this looks like a quarterback. Let's go. But he doesn't keep it together. And that is probably the most frustrating part. And I guarantee you for guys like O'Connell and Josh McCown and Wes Phillips, it's baffling them too. It's probably baffling to the players because they are not seeing that translate from Sunday, from Thursday and Friday to Sunday afternoon. You have to have it translate to Sunday. Practice is great. It is necessary. But if you can't do it on Sunday, who gives a shit about practice? And that's where they're trying to sit and figure out, okay, how do we maneuver? How do we figure this out? Because that's a really tough one. It's a very tough one to parse out, a very tough one to be able to answer, and a very tough one for the coaching staff to be like, okay, how are we able to dissect some of this? And I'll kind of get to that answer here in a little bit, but there's some other things I think we should talk about before we get there because it all encompasses into one. So I'm not stringing you along. I think that all of this matters to make a grand arcing point, which is why we're going to keep talking about some of the negatives. It's one of the big things with his footwork specifically is like you can tell in some reps he has heavy feet. And you can kind of tell like boxers. If you've ever watched the Rocky movies, Rocky 1, it's almost like Rocky Balboa has cement blocks attached to his feet. He does not move well at all. He's lumbering. And Apollo Creed is like dancing around him. He's super light on his feet. He's like almost like hopping. That kind of thing. Boxing is the sweet science. It's such a fascinating sport. It's not just as simple as throwing bows. But when you look at what McCarthy is doing in the pocket, sometimes he gets a little too heavy footed. And that itself can create its own issues because you want to be a little light on your feet because you want to be able to maneuver in the pocket. And he can maneuver in the pocket. And he does a good job of deciding when and where to maneuver in the pocket on an overall level. His pocket movement is tied to some of the things that we've already talked about, where when he's moving in the pocket, he's not moving with intent. And what I mean by that is when you watch guys like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, when you watch them move in the pocket and they fill an open space, the feet are married to what their movement is. So they are moving their feet so they can throw the football. Everybody knows I'm not the biggest Peyton Manning fan in the world. I don't have him as the top 5 quarterback of all time, and I'm comfortable with that. I have him at 6, by the way. One of the things that he was so incredibly good at was always having his feet ready to go. It was almost like when you did up downs in high school football practice during 2 days and you're like moving your feet up and down, and then when the whistle blows, you drop. He's always moving his feet that way. And the reason is because then he can set his feet at any time quickly and make a throw. And that allowed him to compensate for some of his lack of arm strength issues because he didn't have a great arm, but he was so smart and so technically sound that it didn't matter because he got himself in the right position with the right mechanics to hit every single throw when he needed to until his arm fell off in 2015. Those things matter. And what McCarthy is doing right now is he's just moving, but they are not married to how he wants to move and set in the pocket. It's completely out of sorts. So he'll move, but then all of a sudden he's not moving to set himself up. He's moving and then he has to set himself up. That extra step can be the difference between a first down, a touchdown, or an interception. Look at the first interception. So you have CJ Ham coming out to the flat. He gets out there a little late, but you have Jordan Addison on this over route. Kevin Byard has the leverage to take the over route. But because J.J. McCarthy is a little late to slide in the pocket and make the throw, it gives Byard the opportunity to do that. But also CJ Ham is late to the flat, so Byard doesn't feel the need to really attack it like that. And he jumps the route and interception. But when he slides, he doesn't get his base underneath him. And you can tell that he's kind of throwing a little off kilter, off platform. All that adds up. And when it adds up, it spells disaster. Some guys get away with it. Aaron Rodgers has some of the worst mechanics of all time. There is not a quarterback coach in the world that will tell you that you should throw like Aaron Rodgers. It's terrible. He's always throwing flat-footed. He hates throwing from a base. He's like, half the time he's like running and hopping on one foot when he throws, but it works because he's Aaron Rodgers. I remember watching Reggie Miller growing up playing basketball. I grew up when I wanted to shoot a basketball, I shot it like this initially, and then you learn the gooseneck. Reggie Miller kind of shot like a combination, and it was ugly. And you'd never want to teach a guy to shoot like that. But it worked for Reggie, and he shot nearly, like, I want to say career, he was like 36, 37% from 3. He was a Hall of Famer. Okay, it just works for him. What are we going to tell him to fix it? It works. Who cares? That's kind of the thing. When it just works, what? You don't have a quarterback coach trying to fix it. You just be like, all right, this is what we got to work with. Let's work with it. And when it comes to McCarthy, we're not in a position where it's working like a guy like Aaron Rodgers. You have to figure out how to get some of this mechanical stuff to marry together. And the pocket movement, his dropbacks, it's all linked together. Because when you move, you need to move intentionally. You need to move like you're always trying to throw the football. And he's not doing that right now. And then when he does move, he's getting way too wide of a base. And if you've ever tried to throw a ball, when you get too wide of a base, you're not deriving any power from your lower half. When you get too narrow of a base, it's the same thing. So you want to have a solid base. Don't overstep. You just want to take a natural step when you throw. And right now, McCarthy is too wide. He's deriving all the power from his arm, which he has good arm strength, but so much of that is derived from his base. He does not have Josh Allen arm strength. He does not have Justin Herbert arm strength when they can just throw and use all arm and it works. McCarthy is the type of quarterback where he needs to derive the power from his legs. And that is fine because when he derives the power from his legs, he's got a freaking missile. But when you take away that power, it takes away your arm strength. It takes away your ability to make some of these throws. All of this intertwines. And that's a big deal. And then the last part about some of the mechanical stuff, we talk about that back leg. And I know I want to give all the credit in the world to Luke Braun because he was the first one to hammer this home, and he's 100% right. Which, by the way, X's and SKOLs later this week, we'll have one. Time to be determined. We'll keep you posted, I promise. But one of the big things with that back leg is you want to keep it under control. And when you are a major league pitcher, so much of your control is derived from your arm. You obviously want to keep that back leg under control, but it's okay to whip it out because you're trying to derive power in such a short distance. It's easier to throw with control with a short distance. NFL players aren't trying to throw with short distances. Even if it's a 6-yard pass, that ball can travel 30 yards. So that is a big factor here. And when you whip out that back leg, it can be a huge issue because you can lose power, you can lose accuracy, and you need to control it because that's all in your hips. So when that back leg whips out, you are losing power that's being generated from that lower half. So especially if you remember that first interception of the year, the Nashon Wright pick 6 in week 1, you can see that back leg gets a little too wild and some of that power gets lost. And he was a little late to throw it as it is. And you can never be late on an out route. Never. That's how you throw interceptions. So those little details all add up. They all matter. And it spells disaster for what J.J. McCarthy is right now. He is just playing completely out of control. And for right now, that's very frustrating. Is it going to stay that way? Only time will tell. I cannot tell you for certain if it will or won't. But the one good thing is we have seen good mechanics from him. We have seen, I mentioned that Justin Jefferson dig route earlier, where he just 3-step drop, hitch. And a hitch, for those of you that don't know, when you get to the top of the drop, it almost looks like they bounce, where they like plant both feet and then their hips drop a little bit and then they pop back up. That's a hitch. So when they're waiting in the pocket, like Peyton Manning would have the super active feet, most quarterbacks will just keep hitching. And then as they go through their progressions, they'll move their hitch a little bit so they can continue to be in line with where they want to potentially throw the football. And right now, when McCarthy has everything aligned, it looks really nice. It looks clean. It looks crisp. And it looks great. It's like, we got something here. The problem is there's no consistency. And that's where to tie everything back together, we talked earlier in the show, Dave, practice. If you're doing it in practice, why aren't you doing it in the game? And I think I have the answer. But before we kind of get there, I kind of went through a lot, Dave.
Dalton brought up earlier the fact that it looks like on a bunch of his passes, when he makes a decision to throw, the decision itself looks a fraction of a second behind, so he zips the ball to catch up with the receiver. Mm-hmm. And in the process of it, he's suddenly like, oh no, he sees Jordan Addison's open thing, and he zips it, and he's slightly off, and the body isn't aligned, the feet aren't aligned, he's too wide, and the ball sails or falls short or goes behind him, etc. Mm-hmm. Is there something to that as well?
I think a little bit. Dave, I know you've got kids. Did they ever watch a lot of Disney Channel when they were growing up?
Oh, yes.
You remember the movie Johnny Tsunami?
Yes.
So Johnny Tsunami, kid from Hawaii, ends up going and living in the mountains and learns how to snowboard. But he's a surfer. And surfing and snowboarding are pretty similar, but they're also different. It's kind of like going from college to the pros. And he knows the college game. He knows the speed. He knows how to read the defenses really well. But he's acclimating to some of that NFL aspect where the hash marks aren't as wide, and that creates spacing issues in a different way. Players are just better. You're like the best cornerback at Rutgers probably isn't even on a team. Your best quarterback at Ohio State might be cornerback 3 on the other side. So you're dealing with a talent gap too, and some of those things are really difficult to kind of figure out and navigate early on. And I think the issues that you mentioned Dalton was bringing up, where he's just a tick slow, is he's getting used to some of that, but he's making a lot of the right reads. And I think that's what's really encouraging. And the more, and why we keep talking about reps, even if they're bad, at a certain point, you need to bench him before it becomes catastrophic. The Panthers did it with Bryce Young at one point last year. And then Bryce Young this week just had his best game of his career. You need to bench it when it gets to be to a catastrophic point where, hey, you're doing yourself literally no good by playing, and we need to just kind of do a reset. McCarthy's not at that point right now. McCarthy is get as many reps as you possibly can and get used to the speed. We'll keep working on the mechanical stuff. So I think there's merit to what Dalton is saying. I also think that decision-making wise, he's actually doing a pretty good job. And that's not something that when you look at some of the box score numbers, when you look at some of the raw data, that wouldn't be what you expect. But it was a really big issue getting to the line of scrimmage early on. That's gotten better. It was a really big issue with false starts last week. That got a little better. And I loved what Tom Brady said about it on the broadcast, Dave, talking about false starts. It's easier to get them when you're the home team because you're actually listening instead of looking at a silent count. Looking and reacting to somebody with like either the leg or a guard will kind of sometimes they'll like pump an arm. That's different than listening. Listening, you can easily hear things. And there are problems there. Some of them are, I guarantee you, are on McCarthy. But it feels like at an overall level, that process has gotten better. Now, it still needs work, and he's only 5 games in. But there are some positives there. All of that matters, and all of that is he's trying to figure out how to do well at the NFL level because it's just so different from college. So different from college. And I think the fact that he's doing so well in reading defenses, I think is a really, really important element here, Dave. I'm very happy with some of that. Now, when you look at a lot of numbers like EPA per play, which look, J.J. McCarthy has, I think for quarterbacks with over 100 pass attempts, I think he has the highest drop rate in the league, which is just bonkers to think about. Look, McCarthy has his flaws and he needs to be better, and he is not good right now. I said it yesterday on the postgame show. These receivers need to help him. That ball hits your hands, catch the damn ball. It's honestly getting to a frustrating boiling point, and I bet it is for them too. We've seen Jefferson get super frustrated. Catch the fucking ball. That's it. Hits your hands, catch it. And that's been a part of the problem too, because there were 6 registered drops for Pro Football Focus on 32 pass attempts. I accounted for 4 like really legit bad ones. The Justin Jefferson one, I think, was when he was trying to do the hook and ladder and he was trying to catch and toss it right away. I think that's the one they accredited to him, which I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be like, hey, mad at you because you dropped that football because you're trying to get rid of it immediately. And then the Aaron Jones one was a high ball and he got hit in the lower back. I'm like, you know what? I can give you somewhat of a pass for that. The 2 Jordan Addison ones, dog, come on. The TJ Hawkinson one was also bad. The Adam Thielen one, it hits your hands in your catch radius. You got to catch it. These are all Pro Bowl type players. Hawkinson and Thielen have made Pro Bowls. You got to catch the damn football. And guess what? when you miss a catch, that messes with your quarterback's confidence. That factors in. Everything snowballs so much more with a young quarterback than it does with someone who's Tom Brady. Tom Brady will just be like, he'll look at you, he'll grab you by the face mask, be like, catch the damn ball. And that'll be probably the end of that conversation. But with a guy like McCarthy, you can rattle his confidence because he's like, oh, I throw it perfectly. It doesn't matter because they won't catch it. And then that gets into your head. And then it snowballs. And then all of a sudden, you're just playing completely out of control. Help your quarterback. And the one thing that you can do to help your quarterback is by making plays for him. He gives you the ball, make a play. That's simple. We're not asking Jefferson to make the 4th and 18 catch against the Buffalo Bills every week. We're asking Jordan Addison to make less difficult catches than he makes on a regular basis. Just make a catch. Ball hits you in the hands, you better catch it. End of story. And that's all we're asking for. We're just asking for you to do your job. Nothing special. Just do your job. And it all adds up to a boiling point. But I will say, we've talked a lot of rough stuff. And probably the last negative thing we'll talk about is he still needs to get better at layering his throws. He did it a couple weeks ago. The Lions game, I thought, was really good when it came to layering his throws. It was a big focus in training camp, and he struggled a lot with it. And he's going to continue to struggle with it. But it will get better. It will improve. And it's only going to improve with time and reps.
There are 2 quarterbacks that come to mind, John Elway and Brett Favre, that were notorious for being able to throw footballs through cinder block walls. They would absolutely blast the ball at receivers. And the whole point there was the receivers needed to catch the ball. If they didn't, they got new receivers.
Yeah. What was it? Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Robert Brooks, and Antonio Freeman. One of those guys would have a broken finger every single year because Brett Favre and how he throws a football. It's just, that's how those guys lived. But it's also a different era. Athletes are better. Spacing is different. Guys are a lot bigger and longer. No, 100%. I'm saying now more than then, it needs to be a focus of layering the football. And he'll get there. But I want to spin this to a positive because we've talked a lot about the negative stuff. When his base is underneath him, he can still throw a good football. He can throw an accurate football. But I think there's one area, Dave, where we can look at that J.J. McCarthy can potentially be fixed. Short term and use that to propel him long term. And that is running tempo. I talked about this with Carson Wentz too. Run no huddle. It's not a long-term solution. You can only do this for like a couple of weeks. But by running no huddle, it does a couple of things for you. One, running it takes thinking out of the game. It's a much more simplistic play call. Hey, you're going to run this play. You're going to get to the line quick. They're not going to have a lot of chance to do a lot of the simulated pressure looks. They're not going to have a chance to do a lot of pre and post snap rotations. It's going to be just play football. No thinking, just doing. And I think McCarthy could do a little bit more of just doing and less thinking. You look at that final drive. First throw of that final drive, Hawkinson, wide choice, where he just runs 5 yards up, looks at the defensive back's leverage, and makes a cut. And guess what? That ball went for almost 20 yards. Then they throw an out route to Hawkinson, he drops it. And then they got, I think they ran, I don't know if it was Hank, which is just a deep in cut, but they ran a deep hook. Sorry, not a deep in cut, deep hook. And they got Addison on that 4th down. They threw an in-breaker, I think it was to Justin Jefferson. And then they got the touchdown to Hawkinson. That whole drive, you can just tell that McCarthy was more comfortable. He was more relaxed. And he was doing a lot less thinking and a lot more doing. Use that. Use that at the beginning of the game. Get him into a rhythm. Get him into a flow. Get him comfortable. Because once he gets comfortable, then all of a sudden we're cooking with gas. And by getting comfortable and building that confidence, then you can start to is slowly add a little bit more. Do maybe some sugar huddles where you don't do like a full blown huddle, but you kind of stand around and have like a 3-second conversation and then you bust out. Then you can go back to just doing normal huddles. And all of a sudden, McCarthy's got momentum. He's got confidence and he's making all the right plays and he's not thinking as much and he's just playing football. And Kevin O'Connell talked about how some of those mechanical things, he's just thinking and he's just overthinking things and just not doing. Well, guess what? Take away some of the thinking. Take that away and just let him play football. Easiest way to do that is the no huddle. And you continue to build that confidence. And guess what? Without thinking, that's when some of those good habits that they've already built with the mechanics will pop up. Because when you're thinking too much and you're pressing, that's when the bad habits come out. So if you all of a sudden are just focusing on playing the game, doing the no huddle stuff, then all of a sudden, guess what? You're seeing the good come out. And by seeing the good come out, all of a sudden now you have a quarterback that looks like he's worth developing for the next few years. He's worth like, this guy could be our true franchise guy. And then you build that confidence, you put a couple good games together, and then you can phase out the no huddle. And he's a lot more comfortable. He's more poised in the pocket. He's more relaxed out there, not pressing. I'm not going to say that this is a cure-all. I'm saying that there is a path. And I like that from Tidy Skull. To quote Sebastian Bach, if you think you stink, I'm going to use that a lot more because I talk about defense. If you think you lose, you can't think on defense. You just have to react. And with McCarthy, if you can just build up enough confidence with some of these no huddle looks and just get him positive momentum, we can build on that. And hey, guess what? Your first 2 drives were good. We got 10 points. Now let's just keep working at it. Keep building and building and building. When you have confidence, it can grow at a rapid pace. At the same time, if you throw a pick on your first 2 drives, it can spiral out of control just as fast. I think no huddle is the answer for right now. Get him with tempo, get him just working, get him to feel the game instead of think about the game. And that, I think, can be the next pathway to helping J.J. McCarthy sustain success. It is not a cure-all. This is a guarantee that it's going to work on a full-time basis. This is not a magic pill that all of a sudden he's just an elite football player. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start sometime. This is what it is. This is what can help him catapult his growth and get to a point where we think he's the franchise guy again. What do you think?
Well, I think whatever works to make it. He just needs to settle down. It's interesting that during early in games, he starts out fine on the scripted plays that he's practiced all week. It's once they start going to adjustments that his passing rating and all his decisions start to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But then once he gets, was I say, virtually punched in the face, or the game's on the line, he steps up. Something we did not see with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep that when the game's on the line, he steps up and he plays well. That's what we want to extend. We want to extend that, the scripted, what's been practiced, all the way through to the end when he steps up. That level of play. If it's done by tempo, or switching to tempo, especially around the middle 8, by all means, do it. Get him refocused. I think it may work.
Yeah, I think it could. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a guarantee to work. But when you watch that final drive and how comfortable he was, when he was just operating the offense, when he was just operating the plays, not thinking. I know it's the whole 9 thing is a meme, but the whole idea behind it is to just be super focused and just play within yourself. And elevate things to another level. Guess what? He can do that. He can do that. And that final drive, guess what? If that would have been the game winner and the defense would have been able to seal it off, not the defense's fault. Special teams completely blew that. But that matters. And I think if you can find a way to get to that, to harness what was good about that drive, then it has to be explored. And I think if the Vikings choose to go that path, we could see a much different team on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. And Dave, you made yourself perfectly clear. You never want to lose to the Packers. Nobody does. If the Gators lose to Tennessee and the Vikings lose to the Packers, I will be inconsolable over the weekend. It will be bad. But get him just playing the game, not thinking, just playing. And I think that's the best way to do it. Just get him working with momentum. Get him working with those little nuanced details. And I think we could see something really special start to develop. No guarantees, but I think no huddle would be the smart way to go. Just get him working that way at Lambeau Field, no huddle. Just be like, screw it. Let's just go. And let's see if we can get some touchdowns early on. And then you can use the running game to control what's going on. That would be my ideal path to success. Will it work? Only time will tell. Will they do it? I don't know. I hope they'd give it a try, because the best success that we saw from the Minnesota Vikings on offense was the no huddle stuff at the end of the game. I think they should do it. So we'll see. But overall, McCarthy is still so far from being a known commodity. Everybody has a right to feel frustrated. Everybody has a right to be like, oh my gosh, is he going to be the guy? We don't know. But I can tell you this. He didn't throw 4 picks like Sam Darnold did on Sunday. So we can't even look at that and be like, oh, they obviously should have went with Darnold. It's not that simple. It is not that simple. So McCarthy's a very complicated question to answer right now. The mechanics need to be fixed. Decision-making just needs to be sped up a quarter of a second. And by kind of going with tempo, you can get some easier coverages. You can get some easier blitz packages. And then your plays themselves can theoretically run at a smoother level right away. And then you can build off of that and build the confidence. Because he has shown the ability that he can do everything you want him to. But the zero consistency means none of that matters. That was the Anthony Richardson problem, and you're looking at running into that with J.J. McCarthy. Consistency. The practice stuff needs to happen on Sunday. No questions asked. You got to do it. And I would put him in tempo, put him in no huddle, and let's use that to build a foundation of, hey, this is what happens when your feet are clean, when you have the good mechanics. You give yourself that proper base. Now let's build on it. Now let's do play action. Now let's do stuff out of pistol and the shotgun and just do our normal playbook stuff. Kevin O'Connell is also putting him in tough situations as a way for development. And quite frankly, he's making good decisions in those tough situations, but the throws aren't there because something is wonky. There's stuff to build on. Not all hope is lost, but it has to be taken care of. It has to be fixed quickly.
So,
the vibes are terrible.
It's not going to be fixed until the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't time.
The mechanics will be inconsistent all year. And that's something we'll have to live with. But if you can just get him every game into a rhythm and prevent some of those mechanical issues from taking over, I think that is semi-fixable right now. Because when he's in a rhythm, he's using good mechanics, but it's keeping him in that rhythm that's the hardest part.
Right. And he's there during the scripted plays. So I think they focus a little bit on it, and they will continue throughout practices. But there's just isn't enough time to, hey, all right, now we're going to 10,000 reps doing this, 10,000 reps doing that, 10,000 reps doing this.
Yeah. It's a tough conundrum and nobody likes it. But at the end of the day, we all wanted this. We all wanted, as a collective whole, I'm sure there were a couple people who still wanted to keep Cousins, and then there were a couple who wanted to keep Darnold. I want to give ourselves a pat on the back, Dave, because we were pretty much the only ones willing to have a detailed, nuanced conversation about whether to keep Sam Darnold. And we got flamed for it.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of criticism for it. But there's a reason why we wanted to have that conversation. Because it was one that should be had because Darnold was really freaking good. And I think we came to the conclusion, you came to it sooner than I did, that we should go with McCarthy. And I still think it's the right decision. We won't know for sure whether hindsight proves us right or wrong 100% until we get a couple years. We can't do it after half a season. We got to give it time to fester and really present us with a lot of detail. We don't have that detail yet. We'll get it, but it's not there right now. And that's why I'm glad that we're doing this, because I don't know if anybody's going to have this kind of nuanced conversation about J.J. McCarthy, looking at the positives, negatives with this kind of fine-tooth comb, and then presenting a realistic solution to try and help build those building blocks. Mr. Ping's like, should have traded 4 picks and Addison for Drake May. Hey, I'm on record saying that I would have given him 4 first rounders for Drake May. I didn't think it was too much. I thought he'd be great. And now he's about to be MVP in year 2. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to lie, I feel so vindicated having him as my top quarterback. So vindicated. And I got flamed by a lot of people for it. I don't care. I was right, and he's proven me right. So
Dalton just illustrated the scripted plays at the beginning, and then the rest, and the last drive, plus the rest of the game where he fails. If we, like I said, go tempo in the middle somewhere, get him to calm down. I think that might work.
Yeah, I think so. That is going to be our show. But before we go, got a nice little announcement for everybody and a little bit of a incentive for you guys to join as a member of the YouTube channel, because we're going to be doing a lot of SKOL Search episodes this year. And because of some logistical things, we're not going to have like super short shows. Like, we're not going to have like 10, 15-minute episodes, but we're going to have like 3 or 4 players at a time with these SKOL Search episodes, breaking down every draft prospect I scout. Everyone, not just a select handful. Everyone is going to have a clip. And our members are going to get priority access to these shows. We haven't finalized all the logistical details, but if you want to see them, you're going to get priority access before the rest of the general public. And that, along with the Rumor Mill channel and the Ask Forno Anything channel in our Discord, will be the really nice perks for everybody who's a member. And you can ask any of the people in the chat that are green. They are members, and you can ask them, hey, I answer quickly in those channels. I don't mess around. You guys are a priority for us. And we're going to give you access to those SKOL Search episodes. Probably something like a 12-hour advanced screening before everybody else, because we appreciate you guys. And that's going to help give you a little bit more insight on the NFL draft. There's going to be a lot of good stuff. So you're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You should do it now. But once I really get my scouting going, I'm just going to sit and record. Dave is going to be kind enough to piece them together real quick. And then you're going to get everything. And it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of really good stuff in there too.
Yeah, because we have more than 4 draft picks this year.
Oh, yeah. We have projected 9, maybe more. There's a lot of compensatory issues right now. The Broncos waived Trent Sherfield, which complicates things. Eric Wilson playing a stupid amount of snaps complicates things. So there's going to be a lot. We're going to end with this from Remmer. What happened between the past show and practice and now? Feels like all the hype around both QBs was about the same. But Pats fans were panicking. Vikings fans were taking victory laps. Look, everything that we saw from McCarthy in those joint practices is stuff that he can do, and he's already flashed it in the NFL in the regular season. Consistency is the issue. Doing it consistently. Doing it to make it look boring. He can't do that right now. And that is where guys like Patrick Mahomes could do all the flashy stuff, but he figured out how to do the boring stuff. Throw 6-yard passes all the time. And that's what made him one of the best quarterbacks to ever play. That separates you. McCarthy needs to figure out how to do the boring stuff. And once he does and does it consistently, we're going to have a much different feeling about our quarterback. But that's the big thing between then and now. He's not consistent. End of story. Drake May has been very, very consistent. But May also has almost the full year of starts under his belt. So it's understandable. But yeah, we don't lose excitement because it's not there yet. They can still get there. Just give it some time.
Chris, it was a meniscus, not a tendon.
Yeah, if you ask Adam Schefter, he'll tell you it was an ACL. But that's a whole different story. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Become a member so you can get that free access to those SKOL Search episodes starting. When I do start my scouting, I will let you know. And you'll be able to see my live thoughts in the Discord as well. So make sure you join. That's in the show notes. And we will have an X's and SKOLs sometime this week. We'll have the Real Forno Show Thursday night. 2 all bloggers on Saturday at 10:05 Central Time. And Who Will Be King will be here this week. And we will have all of that for you as well. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching. We will see you later. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching.